for resistant forces working against you. You must plan for it. It strips out the frustration if you've got a plan for it. So you know when they come start giving you backlip, you've already planned it because you anticipated that they were going to start giving you excuses. You anticipate their fussing. You anticipate it. And you prepare your way of escape ahead of time. You have to sometimes just go to a mental fantasy land just to take you out of the place of frustration. But remember this, hope is not a strategy. Hope is not a strategy. It is not a plan. You can't just hope that everything is going to turn out okay. You have to have a plan. You have to have a plan. If you're going to go out of town, don't hope that you can make it all of the way to California on one tank of gas. You got to have a plan. You've got to have a plan. Planning requires thought and forethought. It requires thought and forethought. There's certain things that you're going to have to think of ahead of time so that if I encounter this, that I'm prepared to deal with it. Planning requires having clear objectives. You have to have very clear objectives. Clear thoughts and forethought. So, remember this, that the fewer your number of questions, the longer your journey. The less questions that you ask, the longer your journey is going to be. You know, you can stop and ask people for directions. Well, I know they don't want to ask anybody now because they got navigation systems. But the fewer questions that you ask in life, the longer your journey is going to be. So planning means that you've already thought about, what we call the SWOT, your strengths and your weaknesses, your opportunities, and the threats. Again, you must anticipate negative forces. Anticipate them. That what are we going to do if this happens? If this particular issue happens? You have to think ahead of negative things that are going to happen so that you are not caught on the blind side, surprised by it. You get ready to do something good, you're going to run into demonic and satanic opposition. You would think that everything is going to help you because I am doing the Lord's will. And you would think that people are just going to open up the door for you to come in and do things and send money to you and all of this kind of thing. You are going to battle some terrible demons through all kinds of situations. If you ever do anything that will ever amount to anything, you will never do it without attack. If there are no enemies there, there is no reward there. Don't waste your time fighting a fight that does not have a reward. You ought to be able to look at it and say, this thing is worth it. But find out in your planning, what's my strength here? What's my strength? What are my weaknesses? And what opportunities do I have? What are my threats here? You remember God gave Gideon a plan to defeat the Midianites? And then God gave Joshua a plan to bring down the walls of Jericho. It didn't just happen. God gave them a plan. They had a plan. They had a plan. And for Joshua, they had to plan ahead, and then they had to keep their mouth shut. Failure to plan is a plan for failure. It is. So planning helps you to control changes. It helps you to control changes, to adjust your sail, to work with the wind rather than against the wind when you plan. Louis Pasteur said that in the field of observation, chance favors only the prepared mind. Only the prepared mind. And there are certain things, in Matthew chapter 14, Jesus came to the disciples on the water. Now, it's ironic that Jesus came to them on the very thing that was frightening them. There was a storm on the sea. They were afraid of the waters that were vehement and boisterous all around them, and Jesus came to them on the very thing that they were afraid of. Could it be that the very thing that is intimidating you, that Jesus is coming on it? And the only reason that Jesus comes on the very thing that threatens you is to prove his power and dominance over that thing. To say, I've already conquered them. I've already conquered this thing. And if you'll go back and read the story in the 14th chapter of Matthew, when they cried out for fear, Jesus said to them, it is I, be of good cheer. Be of good cheer. He said, chill out. He's like, be happy. Don't be frustrated, worried, scared to death. He's saying, be of good cheer. They were the words that came out of Jesus' mouth. That's what he said to frustrated, scared folk was cheer up. Cheer up. Matthew 14:27. Whenever you get frustrated, or you don't know how to do certain things in your life, you're just frustrated, out of your wits. That is the time to allow God to come into your life. Listen, whenever you're frustrated, it's one of the best times in the world for you to make a godly resolve. Let me say this to you. There are some things in your life that you will never, hear me carefully, experience deliverance in until you reach a point, I've had enough. When you come to the point, I've had enough, you qualify for God's divine deliverance. When you get to that place where I am confronting this, I'm fed up with it, you are a prime candidate for the deliverance power of God, because something down in your spirit has become so vexed, and a desperation on the inside of you is saying, something has got to give. I have had enough. When you reach that point where you're saying, God, I've had enough. I've had enough. I'm done. I am done. When you get done, God will deliver you. Not a day sooner. As long as you're saying, let me sleep with my frogs one more night, he'll let you stay there with the frogs. But when you get to that point where I have had enough, you're not going to treat me like this anymore. I've had enough. You're ready to be delivered. When you reach that point where I have had enough of being depressed, I've had enough of this sickness, you have rid me long enough, devil. I've tolerated you riding my back long enough. I've had enough. I've had enough. It is where you are drawing a line in the sands of time, and you are double daring the devil, saying, listen, I have come thus far. You've come thus far in my life, and you will come no further. It is getting fed up to where you draw a bloodline. This is with the blood of Yeshua, the Christ that died for you. And you said, I have had enough. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I've had enough disrespect. I've had enough sickness. I've had enough heartache. I've had enough sleepless night. I have cried enough tears. It is enough. When you get to that point of saying it's enough, my God, when something happens, a godly resolve that rises in your spirit to say, I'm not taking it anymore. I'm finished with this. I'm washing my hands of this thing now. When you get to that place where, God, I've had enough. I've had enough. That's the last bit of dope that I'm having. It's enough. If he has to let that stuff make you sick, you will never quit what you're still in love with. God has to make it become a sickening thing until your love for Christ becomes greater than your lust for your sin. You cannot be delivered. But when you reach that point in your life where you said, I've had enough. It is enough. It is enough. I cannot take it another day. I don't want any more of this. I've had enough. Now you qualify for the deliverance power of God to come into your life. When you've been in the fiery furnace long enough, then the fourth man appears and changes the temperature to where you can handle this thing. Then you experience the deliverance. I believe that God is waiting for some of his saints to rise up in their spirits and say, I've had enough. 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 It is saying, stop the insanity. Stop the craziness. Stop the vileness. Stop the disrespect. Stop the looseness. Stop the immorality. Stop the violence. It is saying, I have had enough. I've had enough of lack. I've had enough of struggling to live from hand to mouth. I've had enough of living that way. When you get fed up in your heart, in your mind, that you make a godly resolve that I am done with this thing, out of your frustration can come one of the greatest resolves that God could ever bring into your life. And your life can be revolutionized and changed by the glory of God, just because you reach that place where you, by your own actions and convictions of your heart, are telling God, Lord, I'm now ready for you to deliver me now. I've had enough. I throw it in the towel, Lord. Lord, it's all on you now. Take it or leave it. I don't care what happens now. When you get to that place, my God, he will deliver you, and the very thing that has been hunting you will lose its power over your life. Because when you conquer fear, fear will tuck its head between its legs and walk away in shame. It'll scurry away from you. Though they will have come united, like a united force where everything was just coming against you. But when you get to that place that you said enough and God delivers you, your enemies will scatter in 7 different directions. God is just waiting for you to get fed up. There are 2 things that move the hand of God like nothing else. One is when you get hungry for God, and one is when you get fed up with the devil. Either one will drive God to bring deliverance into your life. When you hunger for him, and when you get fed up with all of the mess that the devil has been bringing in your life. I'm glad that some things are happening and that some people hopefully are getting fed up to where they say enough. You've come thus far and no more. I've had enough. Frustrated, no more. I have had enough. I'm done. I've already worried as long as I'm going to worry. I'm done. I'm done. Now you qualify for the supernatural, divine provisions of God.
Reaching the lost.
I'm just here to tell you that God's in the process right now of establishing some bridges.
Teaching the found.
We've got to be able to get a generation from one side over into the next.
With passion.
There is power. Power in the name.
And purpose.
I just had to make up my mind a long time ago that I'm going to do this come hell or high water.
Power for Living with Bishop Dale C. Bronner.
The very place that God wants to come is into the secret places of your life. Because they're the secret places that go unchecked, that destroy us. And if you'll ever get into God's secret place, it is a place of power. It is a place of deliverance. It is a place of blessing. It is a place of peace. It is a place of comfort. When you come into the secret place of the Most High and abide under the shadow of the Almighty, it is a place of security. It is a place of stability. It is a place that God begins to cause your equilibrium to be restored. It is a place where confidence will once again rise up in your heart. It is the place where you find your sense of purpose and your sense of meaning. It is the place where you discover the blessed assurance that Jesus belongs to you. And when you just let God just have his way in your life, oh my God, your life will never, ever be the same whenever you open up the secret places to him and say, God, reign in my mind, reign in my emotions, reign in my hormones, reign in every dimension of my being, in every cell in my body. Lord, be God, and be glorified in me in every way. You give God permission, come in because he's a gentleman. He won't bogart his way in to reign where he is not wanted. He's Lord everywhere anyway. But when you let him in to your particular areas,